Submerged in brackish waters along the Connecticut coastline, newly nested oyster beds are helping restore the environment and protect generations of family tradition in New England aquaculture.
Connecticut was the cream of the crop, pun intended, for oysters, and that we want to see that come back.
Around the turn of the 20th century, oysters became a popular dietary staple for New Englanders. In Connecticut, demand for oysters was particularly high because of the nutrient-rich environments of the natural oyster beds.
So what's really unique in Connecticut are these large tracts of oyster beds that are in intertidal areas like this, but also in deep water areas.
According to the Connecticut Department of Agriculture, the steep rise in popularity for oysters led to depletion of the natural beds due to overfishing. To keep up with strong demand, oystermen began cultivating oysters and oyster seed to raise their own stocks. As the decades progressed, so did cities and towns. Expanding communities and agriculture took a toll on the water aquaculture farmers depended on for raising shellfish.
Many places, the oyster beds have really been decimated early on by overfishing, but later by development. Here in Connecticut, we've faced all of those impacts early on, but these oyster beds are large and they have been sustained by industry and protected by regulators through the years.
Tessa Getchis is an aquaculture extension specialist with the University of Connecticut Sea Grant program. Getchis works with the fishing industry and seaside communities to help establish and strengthen support for the shellfish industry while improving the environment where fishermen work. Even with local oversight and industry regulation, yields from oyster harvests have been on a steady decline, according to the Connecticut Bureau of Aquaculture. Layers of silt have covered the existing culch, prohibiting oyster larvae from setting on shells and continuing to grow into adulthood. Getchis and other colleagues established a pilot program to encourage restoration of the oyster beds as a way to clean up the environment and, at the same time, protect a way of life.
So when we started, it was just ahead of COVID, and we wanted to bring people together to talk about what is the future of the Connecticut oyster industry and also these natural habitats.
When restaurants shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, oyster farmers were stranded without markets or consumers. At the same time, Getchis needed boots on the ground, or more precisely, boots in the boats, to help launch the restoration plans for Connecticut oyster habitats. With boats and businesses idle, boat captains were recruited to help get rid of the silt choking the Connecticut shellfish industry.
They couldn't sell their oysters, and we were trying to come up with a plan to keep them in business. And we had these beautiful beds that needed to be restored and this fleet that was just ready to work. And so we really didn't have to convince them to get out and help us with this. They knew it was important. It's their insurance, really.
These gaps right here, that allows the shell to pass through the dredge, so we keep the shell on the bottom. Okay. This will hold the oysters in it. So we're eliminating keeping the shell on the bottom, but we're taking the oysters up. But any other shell that the guys have that's on